What's going on, everybody? Josh McCarty from Built in Buffalo. And on today's video, we want to talk about the Bills' big ticket free agent signing from Monday, offensive lineman Connor McGovern. And we have got an expert on the Dallas Cowboys, Kyle Youmans from DallasCowboys.com, also host of the Talkin' Cowboys podcast and the Draft Show. Kyle, thanks so much for joining me today on short notice.
Yeah, I appreciate you, Josh, always.
So Connor McGovern was the Bills' initial signing for offensive line. The Bills had an obvious need at left guard after the poor performance of Roger Saffold last year. They had to come out of free agency with a starter. In your opinion, as somebody who has seen Connor McGovern all 4 years of his NFL career, how did the Bills do?
You know, I think they did a good job, and the value was high. I mean, 3 years, $24 million. You're paying him as a starting offensive lineman compared to some of the other starting linemen in free agency. It's probably middle of the pack, but he's getting a big contract to go up there and to do what, like you said, the Bills needed, and that's fill in that left guard spot. The good thing about McGovern is that he does a little bit more than just that. I mean, he is a versatile player. He's played center. He's played the guard position, both of them for that matter. He even took some snaps at tackle throughout the preseason and throughout training camp as well. He can play legitimately at a starting caliber level at any spot on the offensive line. And the Cowboys have needed that the last couple of years. And so while he's battled through some injuries, he's uber tough. He's somebody that you can really rely on to still be in the lineup, even if he does have a nagging injury. But he's also somebody that I think was undervalued in Dallas and at that spot because there were so many solid guys around him, like a Tyron Smith when he's healthy, and a Zach Martin, and of course Connor Williams prior to Connor McGovern. So when he got pushed into the fold, it was either on minimal snaps or it was in a position that he's not necessarily comfortable in. But when he was able to settle in and really play his caliber of game, he was a starting caliber offensive lineman, and those don't necessarily grow on trees.
I've seen a lot of comments coming out of folks who cover the Cowboys that even though he played predominantly left guard last season, that maybe that wasn't his best position. Obviously, there's a big name there at right guard for the Dallas Cowboys that he wasn't going to unseat in Zach Martin. But the Bills have an opening really at both guards with the flexibility to move Ryan Bates to the left side if they so choose to put McGovern on the right side. Do you have an ideal position fit for him?
It would be right guard, no doubt about it. And when he did have an opportunity, whether it was a couple games or Zach Martin's out now, Zach Martin didn't miss a whole lot of games. I mean, he's a Hall of Fame right guard for a reason, and one of the best in the business at doing so. So when he was out, or when Connor McGovern had the opportunity to play right guard, that's where he looked more comfortable. But I had a conversation. It was actually the day after the Cowboys lost to the 49ers in the divisional round with Connor McGovern. And I asked him, I was like, if you sign somewhere outside of Dallas, where would you want to play? And he's like, either guard spot. I'm good at either guard spot. He's like, I'm comfortable at center. He's like, really, wherever they need me, I'm good to go. And that wasn't a political answer because, like I said, it was just a in passing conversation. It was one where, of course, he didn't know where he was going yet, but he wanted to be valued as a starting offensive lineman, whether that's at left guard or right guard. He's good to go. But if there was one spot I could really pinpoint and say he was welcome and comfortable at, it was at the right guard spot. You just had a Hall of Famer in front of him, so there wasn't a whole lot of room to grow there.
The center thing is interesting for the Bills because as of now, they have Mitch Morse at center and they're really high on him. But the thought around him, a long concussion history, maybe he is kind of long in the tooth despite being just over 30 years old. Do you think McGovern is the kind of player that if and when Mitch Morse moves on in a couple of years could be their answer at center? Or is he more of the kind of guy that could get you out of a game at center, but's better off playing one of the guard spots?
It's probably the latter.
Okay.
If he had an entire offseason to really hone in on center and to really get back to it, that's what he played at Penn State, and he was a third-round pick because of that. So he could sit there and be a long-term answer at center if you really wanted him to be. But I think his growth at the guard spot, I think his position fit at both guard spot probably fits a little bit better at the professional level than he did at center at the professional level. So if you needed to get a couple games out of him at center, then yes, you can make that happen. But for the most part, at the guard spot, that's where he's going to shine. And I think that'll continue into the latter parts of his career.
Reading up on Connor McGovern has been tricky because there's two offensive linemen in the league named Connor McGovern. But one thing I like about him is he's only 25 years old. And you mentioned some of the injuries he struggled with early in his career. It sounds like it cost him much of his rookie season. For a guy that really didn't become a full-time starter until last year, despite being 4 years into the league, how much room do you think he has to still improve?
I still think he has a decent way to go. I mean, you talk about this with running backs, you talk about it with offensive linemen, even sometimes some big meaty defensive tackles. But it's talk about tread on the tires, and he has plenty of it left. Like you said, he had room to grow. He wasn't in a position, even as a third round pick, to where they needed him to start day one. They didn't need Connor McGovern to come in and play immediate snaps at the guard spot when he was taken in the third round in 2019. So in a unique situation like that, I think he had plenty of space to grow. He did have the injury. Every couple of years, he had something kind of nagging, but he either played through it if he could, or he wasn't needing to play through it. And I think that was kind of the case in his rookie season. So still a long way to go. And the way that he's grown, even in limited snaps from year one to year four, I think he showed that there was growth that was had, and there's growth still to be had for him moving forward. So I've always been a big proponent of Connor McGovern. So, and even yesterday I tweeted out whenever the signing happened, or on Monday when the signing happened, that this was this is a loss for the Cowboys because of his versatility. I don't know if the numbers would have worked out that way with the cap situation that's currently in Dallas, but he's a versatile offensive lineman who has starting caliber traits, and that doesn't necessarily come around super often.
Yeah, it didn't seem like the Bills were equipped to go into the deep end of the guard pool with Dalton Reisner and Ben Powers. So it seems like they got the next name on the list in McGovern. Final question for you, and I appreciate all this insight. Reading up on him, PFF seems to grade him out as a much better pass blocker than run blocker. And we understand PFF is just one data point. As somebody who has seen every snap of his career, would you agree with that analysis?
Ooh, that's tough. I would probably say yes. He's better in pass blocking. He's surrounded by guys that are better in run blocking, though, if that makes sense. I mean, you look at guys like Tyler Smith, who he played majority of his snaps in 2022 next to. Tyler Smith's a much better run blocker than he is a pass blocker. So he probably stood out on tape a little bit more. And you know as much as anybody that Pro Football Focus, as great as they are at grading these guys and charting these snaps, they look at the individual. They don't necessarily look at the scheme and what teams are attacking. So if you're a run stuffing team, you're not going to go with Tyler Smith because he's the best run blocker on the field. You're going to try and take advantage of Connor McGovern. So he really saw the mismatch a couple different times. I don't think, with all that being said, he's a liability. He is not a liability as a run blocker, as opposed to a pass blocker. And he was able to settle in as a pass blocker mainly because he was in a phone booth. He didn't have to move a whole lot at the guard spot. You're going backwards and you're taking those pass sets that are surrounded with one side of Tyler Smith or Tyron Smith. And on the other side, you've got Tyler Biadasz, who, of course, made his first Pro Bowl this season, too. So I think there's a limit to what he was able to do as a run blocker because of the guys around him. And then there was a bit of elevation to his game because of the pass blocking that happened around him for the most part.
All right, Kyle, we really appreciate this insight on Connor McGovern. Tell the listeners where they can find you.
Yeah, so I'm the TV host, radio host for the Cowboys. So you can find me on DallasCowboys.com. I do all of our draft analysis as well. We're putting out a magazine here in the next couple weeks, but you can find everything you need right here at Kyle_Youmans on Twitter, and then follow Talking Cowboys and the Draft Show, which, by the way, the Draft Show, it has a little bit of a Cowboys twist to it every once in a while, but for the most part, we're talking prospects, man. That's kind of what we're wanting to do. So if you love the NFL draft, check us out, Dallas Cowboys Draft Show. We have a ton of fun with former scouts, radio personalities, and then of course we're the amateur media scouts, but we have a lot of fun with it. So check it out. Even if you're a Bills fan, it's not all Cowboys. It's a lot of draft insight.
We will put the link to all of Kyle's content in the description, so be sure to check him out. Kyle, thank you so much for agreeing to do this on short notice, and we will see you next time on Built in Buffalo Quick Hits.